Ashland University. And today I'll be joined by a couple guests with us to talk a little bit more about what they do on campus. So what we're going to do, you guys, is we'll go through and give you some overview information about the different programs that we offer, and then we'll give you an opportunity to go through and do some question and answer with the guests that we're joined with today. So if you would like, there is a chat function on Zoom, so you can go ahead and chat me your questions and we'll be able to ask those, as well as at the end of the presentation we can go through and unmute your mics so you guys can have the opportunity to talk to our speakers today. But today we are joined by Dr. Victoria Caskey. She is the chair of the Accounting and Management Information Systems Department, as well as one of her star students, Garrett Grandis. So at this time, I will turn it over to them to share with you any information they'd like about the department.
Thank you, Kyle. I'm going to share my screen, so maybe somebody else that is sharing their screen right now would stop sharing. That would be perfect. Thank you so much. So welcome. I'm not certain whether we have the majority of folks here in accounting or whether there's a nice combination here, but I'm going to just kind of cover both of those. So feel free to ask questions as we go through this. So here's just a little bit of overview about Ashland and specifically what we call COBE, which is the College of Business and Economics. I'm going to focus, of course, on accounting and management information systems, but I'm kind of going to give you a broad overview about what COBE can do for you. And specifically, I'm going to talk about some of the clubs that we have going on here. The first one I'd like to talk about is Eagle Consulting. While it seems like as you read this definition of Eagle Consulting, you may think, well, this is not related whatsoever either to accounting or management information systems. And forgive me because it's progressing by itself, so I'm going to have to be flipping back and forth. So you'll notice that this program deals with BOT lab, which is a robotics lab that they basically make robotics and sell them to different entities. This one here is highlighting the one at a school system. And the relationship between Eagle Consulting and accounting and management information system is they're not only doing manufacturing type functions and learning about that, but there is a core group of students that have to interview to be part of the accounting group in this consulting group and part of the MIS consultants as well. So in this entity, while you get a lot of experience, not only in accounting and management information systems, you're also getting a holistic experience based upon a specific type of industry that we have going on in COBE. Another group that we have is Eagle Investment Group, and although this is strictly focused on finance, the benefit and the reason that I want to show you about Eagle Investment Group is because many of our majors double major. And you can double major with an accounting undergraduate, a finance undergraduate, all within, I think, and I'm fairly certain, it's well within the 120 credit hours you need to graduate, and you can get 2 undergraduates. What I'm going to also segue to as we're talking about credit hours is I want to pinpoint what's required for the CPA exam. So if you're not familiar with the requirements for the Certified Public Accountants exam, you're going to need in the state of Ohio 150 credit hours to be able to sit for that exam. So we have a program at Ashland University that you can obtain the 150 credit hours by receiving an undergraduate degree in accounting, an undergraduate degree in finance, and a master's degree, an MBA as well. It's very unique, and our idea behind it is that the state of Ohio does not necessarily care what you get those credit hours in. For example, you can get credit hours in basket weaving for all the state of Ohio cares, But how we feel is you may as well utilize those credit hours to your benefit, stay in school, get a master's degree for the extra 30 credit hours, be what we call CPA ready, and start your career. So that's why I like to throw in the Eagle Investment Group, although it's more finance related. It does have some correlation to accounting nonetheless. The last one here, group, that I like to talk about is very specific to accounting. We do not have a similar MIS, Management Information Systems, club, but we do have one that is an institute, an IMA club. And what the IMA does is they bring in speakers on a monthly basis to showcase different areas in accounting, methods to sit for an exam, industry speakers, public accounting firms, and I think it's a great, I think Garrett's going to talk a little bit about that as well as we introduce him. So just to kind of highlight one specific graduate, and then I'm going to correlate or segue into Garrett. Jessica Syme, just as an example, is a recent graduate, and I like to spotlight her because notice that she completed both her Bachelor of Science and her master's degree, like I had spoken about. Maybe, hold on. And she has since earned her CMA license and her CPA license as well. So she's definitely one that I like to showcase because while she's extremely a great hard worker, it's available and an option for all. So I'll kind of segue that into Garrett here. If you want to talk, Garrett, a little bit about maybe your internship experiences that you've had, I know you've had two, and then any other information, kind of your activities on campus.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for the introduction. As Dr. Caskey said,
I think you might be on mute, Garrett.
Oh, I think I took it off. Do you guys hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so as Dr. Caskey mentioned, the IMA club is one of the big clubs for business, specifically accounting, and I've been in that club since I was a freshman, and they do a really great job of bringing in a lot of different speakers, giving you all the different perspectives of accounting, because there's a lot you can do with accounting degree, which is kind of one of the main reasons why I chose the degree. They do a really good job of giving you the aspects of public accounting and also industry accounting. As she mentioned, I had a couple internships. My first internship was with Huntington Bank, which I was able to get that internship through a connection with Ashland University. We have a really good career fair specifically for accounting majors. It's called Meet the Accountant Night. It's like the second or third week in September, and they bring in about 30 to 40 companies, all in the accounting industry, looking for ambitious college students wanting to get a good internship. So that was my first one. I really enjoyed doing it. I was in internal audit, which is becoming a really important part of the accounting industry, kind of checking on the regulations, making sure the overall company is doing everything right. And then my next most recent internship was with the J.M. Smucker Company, which is one of the best internship programs in the state and even the nation. And they do a really good job of treating their interns right and all their employees. And I definitely noticed I was doing real level analyst work there. There I was a financial reporting intern, so they're a public company, and they have to report their earnings on a quarterly basis because they're traded on the stock exchange. And it was a really good experience for me because I was able to be working on a real document that millions of people see. So because of Ashland, I was able to get those really good internships and provided me with a lot of good experience. And also coming back to school after doing the internships, it's awesome to see how what you're doing in the classroom relates to those internships. So I think the small classrooms at Ashland really plays into that also, and it's been great for me, and I've really enjoyed it so far.
Right, and Garrett is a student in my individual taxation class today, and he just finished his online exam, so we're keeping our fingers crossed that he did a stellar job, which I'm sure he did.
Hope so.
Me too.
Awesome. Absolutely. Well, Dr. Caskey, if you're ready, we do have a couple questions that students have asked. So looks
Sure.
like the first one that comes in is related to MIS, and they were looking at what kind of jobs are out there for students with majors in MIS.
That's a great question because I think oftentimes students confuse MIS with CS. And you probably see this, Kyle, in admissions as well. So I'll first talk a little bit about computer science and then segue into the MIS question. So computer science is much more programming and behind the scenes, where an MIS degree is taking the data. You do have a little bit of programming involved with that, but it's taking the data and then making that relevant for businesses. So we also have not only an MIS degree, which you're going to be talking about system analysis and design and databases and things like that. We also have a data analytics major, which is very closely related. So the question relates to jobs, like what would you do specifically? A lot of our students we have some that go to Smuckers as well. We have some that go to Diebold. We have students that intern or get jobs. Basically, also in internal audit that Garrett talked about. Although it's not internally auditing an accounting program, they're internally auditing the programs that are going on and the internal controls with a company. So, it's becoming an extremely popular major in that, it's gaining momentum from businesses. The only problem is that I think for a lot of students, they confuse the difference between, we have a lot of computer science majors that segue over into MIS, which is great for us because I think that it's providing a clear indication that there's more of a need for the MIS. I hope that answered that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was great. So then another question we got was in terms of internships. So the student asked, when do they have to complete an internship, and what is the process in doing that?
So we're very unique at Ashland University in that we have an internship coordinator specifically for College of Business and Economics. And Dr. Pittenger's job is to coordinate employers and interns. So while many colleges and universities, and please excuse, I'm not discounting any specific program or university, maybe a student is expected to find their own internship. A lot of times what will happen is that we will put those two people together, and I believe that's what happened to Garrett. So Garrett, can you just relate how you would say that your Huntington experience came about and then your Smuckers internship came about and the opportunities you saw there?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the school does a really good job of putting on the internship and job type fairs, and then Dr. Pittenger, it's actually it's part of a class with the internship, which I think is also a really good aspect because it kind of pushes you to learn it in a different way rather than just going there to work every day. And what she does is make sure the type of internship that you want is out there and it aligns with the objectives you want in your class. So there's a lot of obviously different types you can get. And then you can also get a lot of different credit for the internship. So I think you can get up to 9 credits for internships, which is also really nice, taking it as core or elective. But Dr. Pittenger is really awesome, and her connections are very, very impressive. And she also just loves working with students, which is really nice.
Absolutely.
Awesome. That was great to hear. And with that as well, what are the requirements in terms of students for internships? Could you go into that a little bit?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. So we have all COBE students are required to have an internship before they graduate. They can have that for credit, meaning they can take credit hours and do what's called a portfolio, like Garrett was just referring to. Or they can do just a check the box, we've completed an internship, and we're not going to tie that to a specific class. Garrett actually had several internships, and the first one he was a freshman. So we really, really promote our students to have internships sooner than later. We do not say that it's typical for an intern to get an internship in their junior year, their sophomore year, even their freshman year. Our stance in COBE, and specifically my stance in general with accounting and MIS, is I want you to get an internship right away. And it scares a lot of students because as a freshman, I want you to envision yourself going to school, right, at college, and you're there just a couple weeks, and your professors are already pushing you to make connections and talk to different companies and go to career fairs. And I'm sure many freshmen think, well, I'm not equipped, I'm not able, I don't have the knowledge set to be able to do that. But it's important for, I believe, for all students to do that, because although you may not have the specific knowledge set, number one, companies do want freshmen, which I think is a common misconception. And number two, we want you to know what you don't like just as much as you know what you do like. So if you go to an internship, and let's say you're in internal audit, and you, which we've had students go to the state auditor's office, and they come back after a summer and say, oh, no, I do not want to work for government. And I say, that is fantastic news. And they always laugh because they think, how could that be fantastic news to know that I don't like something? Check it off your box. You just interned for several months, found out what you don't like, and you didn't take a job. You're not going to take a job in that industry and waste, I don't want to say waste, but your career growth in something that you could potentially enjoy.
Absolutely, that is a wonderful aspect. And one thing I love to talk about when I talk about COBE students is, although one internship is required, many students do more than that, just like Garrett, and a lot of students can sometimes get all the way up to as many as 3 internships that students are participating in during their time. And I think that's one thing that makes our College of Business a lot more unique is students are coming and they're getting an awesome education, and we're getting them all the certifications they need to be outstanding professionals, but we're also adding on those layers of experience and those lines in the resume that are really important in going out in that post-career hunt after graduation. Yep. So with that, Dr. Caskey, could you go and explain a little bit more about some things specifically that our accounting students do, such as the Vita accounting program and things like that?
Oh, sure. So Garrett, I'm actually going to turn it over to Garrett because I think that he is in the individual tax class, and I think it's nice. I'll fill in the blanks, but I think he'll do a great job. He was actually part of the Vita Tax Program. Unfortunately, before we all had to go off campus for a while like everybody else. So Garrett, could you talk about your experience and how you learned that and what it all is about?
Yeah, absolutely. The Vita Tax Program, kind of drawing a blank on what the VITA stands for, but all the students.
Can I help you? It's volunteer income tax assistance.
There you go.
Yeah.
So all of the students in the tax class were the volunteers, and we sign up for slots on Tuesday, and it's open to the general public. It's open to students, faculty, really whoever wants to come, and we do the federal and state income tax returns for free. And it's a really good experience for us because we're just fresh learning the material, and like it's one thing to learn in the classroom, and Dr. Caskey does a good job of teaching it, of course, but it's definitely like my personal self, I learn better from experience. So when I'm sitting there with the clients in front of me and all their papers and returns, like I'm understanding it better and learning it as I'm checking the boxes, filling it in. And we use a really nice software program called TaxSlayer. So it goes in pretty easily. You enter in the computer, and Dr. Caskey checks our work because we are just undergrad students, but it's definitely a good learning experience, and you can help out your friends. I've told a couple of my buddies to come on by. We could do your tax returns for free because save a little bit of money and get good experience for the students too.
And I think from an instructor, from a professor's perspective, the Vita program for me teaches the hard skills, right? The quantitative skills. Like you're definitely learning about how to do something that you learned in the classroom. And this can be applied to MIS as well as accounting or anything that you go out and do this type of activity, but I learn a lot about students, and I think students learn a lot about themselves in the terms of qualitative aspects. For example, we'll have a student that may be really shy in the classroom, but you cannot be shy. You can be hesitant, but you still have to introduce yourself, shake hands, learn those soft skills that we try to teach in business. But unless you're in front of a specific client or in a business setting, I don't think those things, you can put up on a PowerPoint how to shake a person's hand, right, and look them in the eye, but until you're actually in front of a client or some type of experiential learning situation, those are just as important as us learning the hard skills in the classroom.
Absolutely. And I know that both the community and the students benefit from that program. And having the opportunity for families to come and get their taxes filed for free is just an awesome service that Doc is doing for the community. So thank you for going through and leading that for us, Dr. Caskey.
Yeah, and I just want to point out one more thing, if that's okay, Kyle.
Please.
Probably the funniest story I ever had was as an educator, happened during the Vita Tax Program, just to show you the qualitative skills. I had a student, I think it was last year, if not the year before. His name was Tyler, and he was quite shy, very tall gentleman, shy, and he had a very vibrant client in front of him, and she was so thankful, and Tyler was very shy. And I will never forget when the woman stood up. I can even remember her name was Daisy. Daisy stood up and she hugged Tyler, and Tyler, who was very shy, was like a statue, right? Like, I don't know what to do. And I was on the other side of Daisy. Daisy's back was to me, and I was mimicking to Tyler what to do. I go, hug her back, right? So while we're learning in the classroom, we're also learning that, those things, it's okay. It's still professional. If a client comes up to you and is so thankful and hugs you, you don't want to necessarily not embrace her back. So sorry to interrupt, Kyle.
No, absolutely. That is a great story. Definitely shows, like you said, the impact that, Tyler made on that community member, that she was just so thankful for the opportunity to come and get that service. So that is awesome. Well, the last thing I just want to touch on before maybe we can let the students ask anything they have specifically and things like that would be going through, you mentioned a little bit about Ashland's MBA program, but could you talk about the transition that's an option for students in terms of moving from an undergrad into a master's student with things like that?
Absolutely. So regardless of your major, what students can do as an undergraduate student, MIS, accounting, or management, or any of our programs, you can take up to 3 MBA classes as an undergraduate. And many students feel like, number one, maybe they're not prepared for the extra work. Number two, what's the benefit of that? And the benefit I won't say it's always economically beneficial, but most times it's economically beneficial to do that. Meaning that our MBA program is 30 credit hours. If you have a tuition package where you are getting a pretty good situation and you can push down 3 classes into your undergraduate tuition, because again, you pay the same amount of, Kyle, you can correct me if I'm wrong because I'm clearly not in financial aid, but you pay the same amount of tuition if you're within 12 credit hours or up to 18. Is that correct, Kyle? So, we try to push our students to if you're taking 15 credit hours and you feel like you can take that one extra class as in the MBA program, so it's one less class you have to take to get your MBA down the road, we provide that to students, which I know is both a benefit for time-wise as well as economically, because when students try to say to me, well, I'm just going to get my MBA or my master's degree later after I graduate, and I ask them often, so do you think you're busy now, with schoolwork and all that good stuff? And, oh yeah, Dr. Caskey, I am very busy. I am juggling all this stuff. I said, okay, good. Now throw a 9-to-5 job in there. And, and down the road, maybe a family and obligations that way. And I think the light bulb goes off for a lot of students that just getting that schoolwork, all of those checklists out of the way. I hate to use the out of the way because it's, I'm obviously an advocate for education, but up front versus saying I'm going to do it later. And sometimes that later turns into never. And you just don't want to be behind the 8 ball when you're up for a job promotion and somebody else has a master's degree and you don't. You don't want to be falling by the wayside for that.
Awesome. And that is just such an incredible opportunity for students. Definitely, like I said, that option to do the 5-year MBA is a great thing to tack on to any program as well as any major. So
For sure.
Thank you for that. And thank you both, Dr. Caskey and Garrett, for being here to share some information about those stellar programs we have here.